excited. Make sure you focus. Make sure you how to get the percentage.
Yes.
So guys, want to give you a whole bunch of content. That's what we used to do, and that is the RSVP. I actually have a case manager or with the private practice stuff, but we don't want to jump to the solution. You didn't say you got it. I know you would have told me if you didn't have it either. All right, so we are going to jump in and I am going to, let's see. Oh yeah, it did let me do that. All right, so we're going to start here. First, E.L.I.T.E. I always have pretty much coaching the E.L.I.T.E. is another business that I have and that I work with more like business coaching and private practice and helping people scale businesses and so forth. But the E.L.I.T.E. is always an acronym that I use for the program. So you'll see it throughout. This one right here for this program, the purpose that I want you guys to walk away with is engaging in core concepts that you need to know for this exam. I want you to learn effective strategies. I want you to be able to integrate all the knowledge you have in a practical sense and know how to answer these questions. And then I also want you to be able to target these key exam areas that are tricking people up or you're just having a hard time understanding and being able to comprehend. So, and then finally, if you're able to do all that stuff, you should excel when it comes to the exam day and get that win. That is the plan. All right. So this exam is really a reading test. It's a reading test and a focus test and a follow directions test. What I have learned over the last decade and a half is that sometimes as social workers, we really don't follow directions. We want everybody, we have all our clients and everybody, and we get frustrated because they don't do what we tell them to do. And, we do that. But then I look and I'm like, social workers, we do the same thing. And these are all the reasons why it matters. On a real exam, the ASWB people are not going to say, go back and read that. You didn't go all the way through January. You didn't go all the way back, Corinne, go back and read that question. They're not going to say that. You need to know it. They're also not going to let you know if you missed a word. You have to be able to show up and really answer and read these questions in its entirety. One word can make the difference. I've worked with enough people that have missed the test by 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, multiple times by 2 or 3 points. I took the test the first time and missed it by 1 point. It's that one, obviously it was a lot more questions than that, but that one question that you went back and second guessed yourself on, or you changed the answer, or you read into it. Those are the points. And the goal is not to do that because then you alleviate, messing up and not passing because of something that simple. All right. How we're going to practice in boot camp. We're going to treat boot camp like the real exam. We're going to slow down. You're going to read everything, follow directions, pay attention to every detail. And you also want to understand that if you showed up today, I'm sure you'd really want to pass this exam. You've made the investment, you're taking the time. So please, guys, just give 1,000% of your time and energy into this, and I'm sure you'll reap the rewards. And I don't want you frantic at the testing center. I want everyone to be calm, focused, and confident. So starting tonight, pay attention, read everything, follow everything, and make sure that you trust yourself. Trust your first gut. Whatever, if the answer's there, go with it. If it's wrong, we're going to learn from it. This is not the real thing, but we want to go as if this is the knowledge we have, and this is what we're going to answer with. All right, let's talk about a few things, exam overview, because I do know not everybody up here has taken the exam before. So I want you to understand what to expect and what it's going to look like and all that good stuff. The exam has a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion on the exam. It is important to understand and realize that those microaggressions and biases and stuff that have been in previous exams, if you take an exam years ago, for instance, it would give a scenario where it would say, Alex is a 44-year-old African-American male, and they're giving you this context about them. The way the test is now is very inclusive. So sometimes you don't even know what the gender is of the individual, the race, or anything like that. But they do want you to be aware of cultural differences. So you will see a lot of things that focus on that cultural humility versus before it was all about being culturally competent. Now they want us to have that cultural humility. Obviously, all of this stuff we'll go over throughout the weekend, but just wanted to share that up front. And let's see. So a lot of self-awareness, power dynamics, intersectionality. These are the types of things you're going to see on the exam, and you have to be able to kind of pinpoint them out. A lot of trauma-informed frameworks, anti-racism, anti-oppressiveness. All of this stuff is in the exam and incorporated in a way. The way I like to think about it, you have to look at the state of the world and where we live now and how things are going with the government and so forth. So a lot of the questions you have might gear towards that. You see a lot of immigration questions and undocumented immigrants. What do you do in these cases and scenarios? Because that's what we're dealing with. So it's important the exam make sure that we're prepared for current situations and circumstances for sure. Exam question style. style. So we're going to discuss some specific type of questions you'll have on the exam. I'm not going to go through this a lot because you're going to have enough questions this weekend. All right, but it's just basically giving an example of what an LMSW question might look like in comparison to an LCSW, how it's more clinical, diagnosis driven. All right, so the practice demo, we are not going, it says let's walk through a question together. I do have so many questions that I've implemented throughout, and you'll also see it in the boot camp. So the boot camp workbook. So we're not going to do that part. But I know a lot of you guys said you're taking the test for the first time. So if you're taking the test for the first time, have you even been to the ASWB website to see what it looks like how the screen looks and how the questions and that kind of stuff? If you have not, make sure you remind me either tomorrow or later on this evening. Probably tomorrow. Later on this evening, I'm gonna be no good. I've been up since 4:30, so we're not gonna be here all night for sure. Tomorrow, though, you can ask me before, and I can send you the link or drop the link in the chat section so you guys can actually know how to do that. All right, so this is pretty much a rundown of what to expect. Day one, we're doing the welcome and housekeeping. That's just what we just did. We're going to be going over foundation and focus. That's the stuff we did. And then again, these slides, we're going to be going through, I told you guys tonight, we're going over strategy. So strategy is typically, normally I do it over a 4-day period, but we're doing a weekend. So normally where it says strategy session, confidence concepts, and exam mindset, that's what we're going to be going over tonight. So that's what we're going over tonight. Tomorrow, day 2, we're going to be going right into human development, which I'm sure you guys are going to be all through the workbook doing the stuff beforehand. And if you do tomorrow, it's fine. I'm not going to be stressed because boot camp has started. But we're definitely going to be going through human development. And then we're going to go through all of human development. So those who've done boot camp before, human development is a few hours. I have updated some things, so we'll see how long it is, but you'll have a break. We normally do a 30-minute break. That's the longest break you're going to get. While we're doing human development, you get 5 minutes here and there, but then we take a 30-minute break for you to clear your mind and grab something to eat and just go for a walk or something. And then we come back and then we jump into assessment and client interventions. If we don't finish up assessment and client interventions, we'll start that first thing Sunday morning. Then we're going to go right into ethics. And then we do our final, activity and questions and stuff like that. We do questions all throughout, and you'll see lots of questions in the workbook. So that's why we're not going to probably do a lot of like breakout sessions where you're answering questions. We'll just kind of do that in a group format. These are the ground rules. I almost forgot. I knew something was missing. The ground rules. So as you can see right here on your screen, respect the flow. Basically, I just asked you to let me finish the slide first. I know some people are really anxious and they just want to know. I'll be talking about human development and they're like, oh my God, I'm having so much trouble understanding the personality disorders. Can you explain that? Like, we're not even in that section. That's the next day. So just let me finish the section. Let me finish the content. If you have questions, take notes. Get your sticky pad, your note cards, your flashcards, whatever you need to be, and just write notes of stuff that you want to ask. Remember, this is boot camp. We're not supposed to go over absolute everything under the sun. We're going through enough information for the areas that you're struggling with, you don't know, to make sure you really have an understanding of it, and we move really quickly. So I always tell people, don't jump in boot camp if you don't have a foundation. Like, you should have been studying and have completed a course, or for those of you that are testing in May or the end of April, and I'm not having boot camp in April, you might have jumped in ahead of time. So that means take your time and go through the content. If you have questions, people send me DMs all the time if they've been in boot camp or just in any of my programs, just asking me stuff. So you guys can definitely make sure you do that. All right, the questions in chat. You can drop questions in the chat at any time. I do normally pause for Q&A like after each section. I'll ask you, do you have any questions? So I will give you the opportunity to ask that. If you raise your hand, I'm not going to stop speaking and doing my slide. I'll just wait until the end of it, and then I'll ask you, what question you have. All right, so vision and attention. We can ready to start this thing. What would passing this exam do for your life, your family, and your future? Just think about that for a moment. Take a moment to reflect. Write it down in your workbook that you guys haven't gotten yet, or write it down on the sticky card. I like you guys to put it on a note card and put it like right in front of you. Like, I have my vision boards in front of me, and a picture of my grandma, my 5-year-old self, and all this kind of stuff that kind of keeps me motivated throughout my work week and days. So just write it on a sticky note. What would it do? And that is your why. So when you're ready to get on your phone and scroll through Instagram or look at some TikToks in the middle of boot camp, make sure you look at that sticky or that little card in front of you and remember your why. And that should give you the motivation to keep doing what you're doing so you can go ahead and get this passed, and we can do what we need to do. All right, so here we go. We got starting out right here. So welcome to the elite. You are here because you're ready to pass, not just to study. We're going to do tonight, we're just going to talk about strategy, strategizing. That is what today is about. Boot camp is different. We don't just give you a whole bunch of content. That's what we used to do. I'll be honest, my boot camps are heavy content filled. They still are, but I at least want to give people something to use, like a strategy they can start using when they're answering the questions throughout the boot camp. So that's why it's important that we're starting now with the strategy part. All right, so this is pretty much what we're going to be going over tonight, should I say. All right, so the exam is not testing what you know, it's testing how you use what you know. That is a big disconnect that I feel people have. They're like, I know everything. I've studied this. I've been in the field for 35 years and I just don't know why I can't. That's part of the reason, because you got all that experience, and the exam doesn't really care about all that experience and knowledge. They want you to take the exam and know it a certain way. So there are two things. Everybody knows my FMBM method, but I'm introducing a new one today, and that is a RSVP. I actually have a YouTube video that's probably going to post next week. It's already recorded on this. But of course, I decided my bootcamp people to get it first and foremost. All right, so the RSVP is the process and the FMBM is the priority. The reason why I switched up and thought of something to go hand in hand, I get so many emails, messages, texts, anything you could think of telling me how the FMBM has helped them pass the exam has been tremendous help in increasing their score, even if they haven't passed. So I know the FMBM by itself works, but sometimes as a social worker, there's a certain way we have to think and know the process before we can decide what we do first next, or what would be the best option or the most appropriate or most effective. So that is why I'm implementing the RSVP method. All right, so when we talk about the RSVP method, the first thing is the role. So we need to know who we are in this scenario. Are we the case manager? Are we the private practice clinician? Who are we? That is pretty much what the role means. And then we always know safety is first. So I don't care what the scenario says, what you're supposed to be doing, or what your role is. If there's a safety situation in there, some type of risk factor, something that's kind of in there and and you're not really sure about, automatically that's a safety issue. We need to address that first. We're going to do that before we do anything else. And then validate. When it comes to clients and we're working, remember, we are social workers first. We validate where a client is, how they're feeling, what their thoughts are, going back, asking them how they feel about a thing before we just jump in and start, intervening. And then the process. There's a whole strategic way that we have to answer these questions in the process in which we do it. All right, now let's talk about the FMBM method. I know all of you guys know that. I'm sure this is you guys' favorite method, but I'll be nice and go over it anyway for those who don't know it, but I'm sure raise your hand if you don't know, if you've never heard this before and you're like, what is she talking about? All right, and beware of the fix-it trap. So social workers as a whole, that's just what we do. We just try to fix everybody and everything and just feel like we just have a cape on and our job is just to save the world. So be aware of that. We want to solve problems. We want to do all of this stuff, but we don't want to jump to the solution. So keep that in mind when you're answering these test questions. You don't want to jump to the solution because that's typically leading you to the wrong answer. Unless there's, obviously, as the screen says, a safety risk. So we are going to jump in and we are going to talk about human development. So as you can see, some of you guys have your workbook. These are the sections and the areas that we're going to be going over. Piaget, Vygotsky, Erikson, Freud, Kohlberg, attachment theories, Mahler, all of this stuff. You guys have heard it, you've seen it. We're going to deep dive a little bit into some of these topics. And then, let's see, I got my timer, it's 8:12. Again, we're not going heavy in this. We're going to stop in about 20, 30 minutes tops and then resume tomorrow. All right, so this is pretty much what we're going over in Module 2. As you can see, a lot of information, a lot of stuff that we're going over. You guys can look and say, oh, I know 1 through 6. I'll just come back and get back on the call when she gets to Mahler, whatever floats your boat. But this is what we're going over, and we're going over it in this order, and you'll actually have questions and stuff to go over in your in my presentation, but as well as in your workbook to follow along. All right, so cognitive development theories, Piaget and Vygotsky. I know a few people have messaged me saying they were missing some questions on Freud and Piaget and trying to figure out the difference and stuff. So when it comes to Piaget stages of development, it's all about cognitive. So cognition, the thought process, how we think. So that's what he's dealing with, the cognition. You have Freud is dealing with sexual. You have the different theorists and they focus on something specifically. So whenever you see test questions and you see Piaget, we're talking about cognition, the thoughts, recognizing certain milestones and developmental things that should be happening to bird at a certain age and a certain point. He had 4 universal stages of cognitive development that explain how children think and evolve from birth all the way down to the adolescence. So that is pretty much what we're looking at. So moving on, we're going to now break it down and talk about these 4 stages to make sure you really have an understanding of it. So sensory motor stage, this is pretty much what children are learning through their senses. That's just how they learn, how they, your 5 senses, see, hear, touch, all of those types of things. That is how a child is learning. And then how you would assess this on the exam, because again, when you see how my slides are broken down and how you guys have it in the workbook, I'm explaining the characteristics of what you're likely to see during that stage, but then how it might appear, how you might see it when it comes to the actual test, what it would actually be linking the content with the actual, being able to reason or apply it, should I say, the application piece. So let's move on to a question. Who wants to read this question and answer it for us? Everybody's reading the question first. It's okay. You can just read the question. If you don't know the answer, don't worry. We'll have somebody else answer for you. So can I get a volunteer to ask this question? Yeah.
I'll read it. I'm Trella. A social worker is meeting with a 5-year-old child who insists that the moon follows her when she walks at night and believes that her stuffed animals have feelings just like people do. The child becomes upset when her younger brother plays with her toys, stating, "He doesn't understand that my toys don't like him." And according to Piaget's theory, the child's thinking is most consistent with which stage? So sensory motor stage is A, as evidenced by the child's focus on immediate sensory experiences. B, preoperational stage, as evidenced by egocentric thinking and animalistic beliefs. C, concrete operational stage, as evidenced by the child's ability to understand others' perspective. And the answer will be B.
All right, pre-operational stage. You got it. Angela clapping. Look, Angela's raising her hand and everything. We didn't even go through the answer. She cheering for you like, yes, girl, you got it. So one thing I want to say is this. So again, only because I think it was, Dorothea, you shared that the questions are easy. So to me, this is an easy question because the answer is in the question, but it's for you to understand how it will be applied. Because if you notice, the question is leading because I'm giving you the example at the end. And I did that intentionally. Normally I would say it would just be sensory motor stage. It's just a pre-operational stage, a concrete stage. You should be able to know the answer. But if you look at the second half, I kind of led you what the answer would be so you can have an understanding of it. Remember, and go back to the slides. So I want you to kind of, when you're answering it, it's kind of helping you to understand what that means in that stage. And let's move on to Vygotsky. Vygotsky had the social cultural theory. And when you're talking about Vygotsky, the main terms here is the zone of proximal development. That is a gap between what a learner can do by themselves and what they can achieve with guidance from someone else. So whenever you're looking at Vygotsky, you're thinking of more of individuals that might have like a learning disability or delay or have some type of deficits in how they process or understand things. So that is what you do. So like teachers talk about scaffolding all the time. They pronounce it another way. I say scaffolding, but it's a temporary structure support that's provided by a teacher or therapist. And then you gradually remove some of that support as they gain more competence. So teachers do it all the time. They teach a kid, they might have a whole bunch of Legos out or blocks, and they're trying to teach them how to count or do something. Once they understand the thing, they eventually move the blocks, and then they have to just understand how to do it on the paper. Moving on from here, these are some examples of the scaffolding, and then like gradual release of support, assessing the zone of proximal development. So these are just some ways to kind of understand a little bit more context of what these terms may be and how you would actually apply it. Here goes a practice question. So who wants to read this one? Okay, go ahead, Jerron. You don't have to read. I saw you getting ready to come off mute and say you wanted to do it. So I'll let Jerron read this question.
I wasn't going to, but I can read it though.
if you want somebody else to answer it.
No, I'm good. I can handle it. A social worker is developing a treatment plan for an 8-year-old client with learning difficulties in math. The child can complete simple addition problems independently, but struggles with multi-step word problems. The teacher reports that with one-on-one guidance, the child can successfully solve the problems. And so for our responses, we have refer the child for special education testing to determine if the learning disability is present, recommend that the child repeat the grade to master fundamental skills before advancing. And then C is going to be implement scaffolding techniques where teacher provides structured support that gradually decreases as child gains confidence. C.
Anybody have any questions about that? I know that is basically the intervention that the social worker should recommend first, right? Everybody's saying C? Well, not everybody, but who is answering? All right. And it's just giving you an example. So why it wasn't the other ones. Testing may eventually be warranted, but the scenario demonstrates the child can learn through support. So basically, I love reading rationales for questions. Like sometimes I'm speeding through and trying to answer it. I'll just answer. And then I'll kind of learn from the rationale. That's what I'm going to teach myself and go through it. Like if it wasn't this answer because of this, and seeing if I can truly understand why this answer was the better answer over that, and see if I use a technique or a strategy, would I have been able to come with that answer because I was using it the correct way. All right, Erikson, psychosocial development. This is the 8 stages of man. So Erikson, Freud, Piaget, like these are the common ones that everybody pretty much knows, but a lot of the other ones are popping up, so we want to make sure you have an understanding of it. So when we're talking about Erikson, of course, we got the trust versus mistrust. You got the autonomy versus shame and doubt. Starting back from the basics, just because I don't want to take for granted that people understand this. So when you're looking at stage 1 and you're looking at that trust versus mistrust, I always tell people you want to be on the left-hand side. So think about a child between the ages of birth to 18 months. Normally you're depending on your parents to feed you, to comfort you, to change you if you're crying, your pamper needs to be changed. All these types of things are done. So you begin to trust your caregiver, that if something's going on, you trust that they're going to help you and your needs are going to be met. Going to the last 4 stages of Erikson, you have the identity versus role confusion. You see this question pop up all the time. And that is pretty much that young adolescent or that teenager trying to identify and figure out who they are. That's the peer relationship, social groups.
Exactly.
A way to look at it and understand it. So when you look at self-concept and identity, who am I and where do I fit in? Relationship patterns, can I trust and love others? And life transition, has my life had meaning? And that's pretty much what you see in those latter 2 stages that we talk about. Like, has your life have meaning, or are you currently giving it meaning? That is what you want to look at and see and focus on. And it gives you some interventions here, and then some one of the red flags, like rigid over identification with cliches or total withdrawal. So that is pretty much when someone's dealing with like the self-concept of who they are and trying to identify with who they are or where they fit in at. These are the things that you don't want to kind of focus too much on their identification, but kind of explore some of the other things. Some of the interventions would be exploring their values, their belief system, some goals they have in place. So these are some common answers that you would have for an intervention question if you're dealing with a client that is dealing with like identity issues or relationship stuff and so forth. Right now, this is giving you some context to the ages, what's happening, what's going on there, so you guys have an idea. But I definitely want you guys maneuvering through the workbook, and I see some people putting in the chat, maneuvering through the workbook so you can kind of have some examples and go through these as well.